I said that's true. Man, whatever a man sows, he will also reap. But what God has sown, he's able to do the impossible. He's able to do the miraculous. So he sowed in Israel and reaped the church. Um,
But even a man, he sows corn seed, he doesn't get corn seed coming out of the ground. God reaped, he sowed the sons of Israel, but he reaped a faithful group later. They had to be a death and a resurrection. The corn doesn't come up the same as what you planted.
the corn doesn't come up. It ends up being that corn, right?
You plant a seed, it doesn't come up looking like a seed.
It comes up like a plant.
It's got to be a change.
Right.
So he reaped, he planted something, what he reaped wasn't what he planted. And the same with us. It may be the same type.
Right.
We may get a corn plant, you're going to reap, eventually you're going to reap what you sowed. But with God, anything's possible. But
Right.
he did sow something, but he reaped something else.
Yeah.
And I say too, you can look at that both ways. Did God sow and reap? I mean, he wants us to be holy.
Right.
I don't think he got holy people all the time. I mean, it's not what he intended
Right.
at all. I mean,
Right.
he, through his grace, he gets what he wants.
Right. What is the biggest difference in, I don't know about the biggest difference, but in the behavior of the Israel that God sowed and the Israel that God reaped? What is the most obvious difference in behavior?
Spiritual.
What?
Spiritual versus physical.
Okay.
The way they worship.
Okay. Yeah. What was the biggest violation of the old Israel?
Idolatry.
Right. So even the Israelite that's before the church age, when they come back, it is said of them that came back, they were the faithful. They were the ones that cared the most, that were the most passionate. Those who were not stayed up there where all the idols were, where that was a way of life. When they came back, it's just very interesting that Israel hated idols. I mean, you can say some awful things about the Pharisees. Obviously, it's easy to do. But it's interesting that as corrupt as they were, at least they had that one thing going for them. That they didn't have wooden or gold or silver idols, and they were quick to they were clear in that was against their faith to have those idols, and they shamed the Romans for having such a practice. And so they abhorred them even before Rome, when Greek kings were trying to, and they put an idol in the temple itself, and that's why we have something called Hanukkah, because of that whole back and forth, needing to get rid of the idols that were in the temple. Well, the Greeks did that, and then you got the Romans. So why did they hate it so much? Because there were idols in the time of Ezekiel, in the time of Jeremiah. Yet not only did not bother them, they were guilty of putting them in there. So I think that even though, as you rightly pointed out, we can't look at ourselves here in the church age and say, well, we're so good. We wouldn't be good without the Messiah. We just wouldn't. But there is a difference in even somebody who is not lining up with the new covenant, in that we understand that the idols are fake, that there is a real God, that there is a living God, and that it's something that is an abomination to worship a false God.
And don't it go even further, because what God hates is the divided loyalties, even today. You know, there's a divided loyalty between going Satan's way and God's way, to where, you know, without the grace, we can't do it. I mean, so he's jealous of the divided loyalties.
Right. It is so ridiculous to have a divided loyalty when you consider the fact that God is the one who made us, and God is the one that continues our life. It is just so absurd to have a loyalty split between that kind of, I hate to say that kind of God and this kind of God, because this kind of God is not even real. This God not only is real, but he supplies. And so it's odd.
Well, I just mean even every day. You
Yeah.
know, the people that choose not to be here on Sunday morning because they have a divided loyalty
Yeah,
to be somewhere else.
right.
You know, we make choices every day, and our loyalties are constantly divided, where we're making choices that, you know, doesn't choose God first.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because we're quick to judge Israel from 700 BC because they're so obviously given over to their idols. However, you can argue that people today, and I think that's what you were kind of saying, if you have a divided loyalty, is that not your God? Is that not the same thing? But I would argue it's not the same thing because it's not as absurd. It's sneaky. Like, for instance, you can make money your God. You could do that and not even know. Whereas the Israelite from 720 BC, they could see their God, and right on purpose they would bow down to it. Someone who makes money their God only symbolically bows to money. You don't see them, at least it's a super ridiculously rare case where somebody would bow down literally to money, but they would bow to Baal. They would bow to Diana or whatever, those false gods, literally worshiping in every sense of the word. Whereas there's a loyalty or a split loyalty when the Lord wants you to behave in a certain way or go in a certain place, gather together, and you don't. So you have a loyalty to your own feelings, a loyalty to your own desire, your what you feel like doing, versus what clearly in the scriptures shows what you should be doing at any given time. So there's a divided loyalty, but not a divided acknowledgement of God. Now, I'm not in any way wanting to say one's better than the other, but I'm asking, is there a difference? Where the rubber meets the road, or where the reward or the punishment comes, there's not, I think. But when if 800 BC Israel's lawyer was here, would he not argue that? Would he not say, are you better than they with your and I mean saying it to the world, the whole world, are you better than they? So you could see their idols. So you could see their literal knee bow. Are you not divided in your loyalty from this or that? Are you not quick to
Throw a
do
stone.
things? What's that?
We're the first ones to throw a stone.
Yeah. So what is the difference between us and them? Is there a difference? Can
Do
you
I
say?
bow my knee to an idol, or do I bow my back to labor so I can make more money?
Yeah.
I've worked with guys that Weekend, all that meant was double time and time and a half. And I'm gonna work it if I can, and I'm gonna arrange it if I can to work it to make more money.
Right.
That was the philosophy.
Well, back then they physically bowed down. Maybe today, we don't physically bow down, we mentally or spiritually bow down.
Well, and back then, everything was physical, the worship was physical, you know, and this is our heart, so I think that it can be argued that we are no better than them in that respect. Even though we don't physically offer sacrifices. It's all
Right.
spiritual.
Right.
So everything is spiritual now, we do have physical things to do.
This goes with question number 9 in Hosea 6. When you look at verses 4 and 5, what shall I do with you, O Ephraim? What shall I do with you, O Judah? Your love is like a morning cloud, like the dew that goes away early. All right, so in verse 4, he's talking about their love. In fact, Israel North and Judah. And he makes a comparison when he talks about their love. What is their love like, in other words? If their love is like a morning cloud or like dew that goes away early, what does that mean? In other words,
It's fleeting.
it's fleeting. It doesn't last, right? He's saying this is your problem. Your love doesn't last. So many times we see them say in the scriptures, all that the Lord has said, we will do. And then they don't do it. Verse 5, therefore I have hewn them by the prophets, meaning I have had the prophets speak words that are very strong against them. I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and my judgment goes forth as the light. So I'm sending my prophets to tell them like it is, and that light is showing the type of people they are. That light is making it clear that they are disappointing. Now, how are they disappointing? They have other loyalties. So in verse 6, he says, I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. So he commands them to have a religion where you would burn offerings to God. Yet he tells them what he really would desire, or you might say delight. He delights in steadfast love. Now, what I really want us to see is in the Hebrew, many times we change that word to mercy. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. However, if it is mercy, then it's a rarer use of the word mercy. Mercy usually is, you did me wrong and I'm not going to punish you for it. I'm going to have mercy on you. But mercy can also be to someone innocent that you're treating wrong. And God desires mercy in that way. In this verse, I believe he's talking about it. Have a heartfelt understanding of how good I am to you and have mercy on me. You're not treating me right. You're not treating me like the good God that I am. Have mercy. If I can get through to you, let me get through to your heart. I want you to know how much you break my heart, that you stir or churn my heart within me, God is saying. I desire that you would see, not so that you can go through the motions, which is what they're doing with their offerings. It's not like they don't offer offerings. They do offer offerings. But he's saying, what I really want is your genuine love, steadfast love. I don't want it to go away like the dew. You wake up in the morning, there's dew on the ground, the sun keeps coming up, it burns off the dew, and it's gone. That's what your love is like, Israel. And why is it like that? Because it's a divided loyalty. So in that way, we have to fight the good fight in our lives today, 2025, almost 2026. If anything challenges our loyalty to God, which, by the way, some translations have that. I desire loyalty and not sacrifice.
Doesn't it say that in Hebrews too?
In Hebrew,
In Hebrews.
what book and chapter? What?
I'm not sure, just that what he desires is not the sacrifice of
Right.
bull and goat.
It comes up more than once, yes. That's right. So, this is what he's trying to get through to our hearts, in that it's a threat against our relationship with God. And it should be. It should have a realness to it. There should be a genuine exchange of experience in our life. God should be a part of our life, in that we should have a steadfast loyalty, a steadfast love, and to do that, again, with the Hebrew word hesed, it's a mercy toward God, meaning, hey, how can you treat God so bad? Have mercy on him. How can you have a divided loyalty? And that's what they were guilty of. It is heartbreaking to offer love to God, but it's not lasting. And so he was trying to communicate to them that they talked the talk but did not walk the walk, that it was not as important to them as it should be. And it's not a callous, robotic God that is watching it, but a father that actually cares very much so, has gone to an incalculable amount of trouble to have a relationship with these humans. He really wants you to know he's real. He really wants you to care the way he cares. Now, yes?
Verse 5, where it says, slain them by my words in my mouth, and my judgment goes forth as the light. That reminded me of the first chapter of John, where Christ is described as the light of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And because it says the light, not a light.
Right.
And he says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. It's
Right.
almost saying the same thing.
Yeah. Right. That's right. And it is a perfect analogy that the light is there, because in darkness you can't see. Can't see anything, and you don't know what you're tripping over. You don't know the direction that you're heading is the wrong direction. But if you turn the literal light on in the room, or the sun comes up on and you can see down the road. But that's exactly what's going on when it comes to right and wrong. It's, you know it's right and you know it's wrong by the Word of God. This particular verse, Hosea 6, I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. Jesus quotes in Matthew 12. And we've talked about this before. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck heads of grain to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." So let's stop right there before we get to verse 3 through 8. What are the disciples doing that's not lawful? The answer is nothing. They're not doing anything wrong. It's not wrong to eat on the Sabbath. They're pretending that they're farming. The Pharisees are pretending that they're working on the Sabbath. That that's not work, to put your hand down, grab food, and bring it up to your mouth. That's not farming. That's not work. So they're falsely accusing. In verse 3, he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and those who were with him?" Now, when you look at verse 3, and then you look at verse 7, where in verse 7 it says, "And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice." some people would misunderstand that David got mercy because he was hungry. And so I need to have mercy on everybody else. That if I say, this is what the law says, the new covenant law, and they want to say, yeah, but I'm hungry. Yeah, but I'm tired. Yeah, but that person deserves it. I should have mercy on that person that's breaking new covenant law. But that's not what the mercy is. Because he says, if you had known what this means. Well, how can you know what it means? You have to go back to Hosea, where it was originally said. Your loyalty is like the dew. So he's saying not that, oh, it's okay for them to break the law of Moses. They're hungry. Have mercy. He's saying, look, we are the ones that are loyal. You Pharisees are not loyal. Because you have traditions, and you want to pretend your traditions are law. And they're not. This is misinterpreted several times because I desire mercy. People would say, look, you should ignore the law and have mercy. If you're hungry, it's okay to break God's word. If you're poor, you can steal. Have mercy. That's not what it's saying at all. And the reason why we know that's not what it's saying, he's saying, if you had known what this means. And again, I think it's interesting that a lot of translations use the word mercy there because it's misunderstood. But clearly from verse 4, if we back up, what is the topic? The topic is your love for God. Or some translations use the word loyalty. Your loyalty is like the morning cloud. That's the topic. And he's telling the Pharisees, you know what? Your loyalty is ridiculous. So much to the fact that now it's twisted that you would blame us for eating on the Sabbath. You don't understand. And notice that he says, I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice. I desire the knowledge of God. The Pharisees did not have the knowledge of God. They had the knowledge of their religion. In their zealousness, which is true, they did have zeal, but not according to knowledge. In their zeal, they had made their religion, Judaism, an idol, ironically. They had decided that they were going to not be like old Israel. And they ended up being like old Israel anyway, because they made an idol out of their religion, their traditions, their man-made traditions. They've added to what Moses said. Look, when we didn't have these hedges built up, we got into trouble. We made idols. So we're going to build up these hedges. So you got the law of Moses, and you can't even get one step away from the law of Moses, so that you end up with idols. So we're going to make our own rules, so you can't get there. Which, in regular parenting, that seems wise, to keep your children out of danger. You keep them out of the street. Well, there's no cars, yeah, but there will be cars. So stay out of the street. You make an extra law to keep them twice as safe. But man is not allowed to make extra law. God made the law, and it's perfect.
Does this at all tie in, this steadfast love for God? Does it tie in at all with what David's saying in Psalms, how God doesn't desire sacrifice, but he desires a contrite heart? I mean, doesn't that tie in to what they don't have is a repentant heart? where, you know what I'm saying?
There's a similar thing that happens with King Saul when he offers up a sacrifice, and Samuel tells him, you really think that God likes this whole animal sacrifice thing? Yes, he told me to offer an offering, but what he's really looking for is your genuine love toward him. And so King Saul, he said, I desire obedience rather than sacrifice. I desire that you would just do exactly what I said. I want to see if you will have the faithfulness even in a high pressure situation, King Saul. I want to see if you will have the discipline about your relationship with God, that you will do exactly what, and just trust him. Even if it starts looking like what perfect God said is not going to happen, if it starts looking like that, that's especially when I want you to trust me. And so, yeah, I desire obedience rather than sacrifice. When, again, if you're going to have a lawyer, wait a minute. The offering an animal that is what you said. You said do that. That's not exactly what he said. That's the problem.
Well, Cain didn't do that. I mean, Cain and Abel is a
Right.
perfect example of that.
Right? Yeah. Cain brought an offering, but not exactly what God said. That's right. To do exactly what God says shows that you understand your relationship with the Holy God. If you don't do exactly what he says, then you think you're an equal with God. You think you are as majestic as the God of the universe.
It all boils down to attitude.
Yeah.
Attitude with your sacrifice, the attitude with our lives. It's all about attitude.
Right. And so in Hosea 13, it says, when Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal and died. And now they send more and more and make themselves metal images, idols, skillfully made of their silver, all of them the work of craftsmen. It is said of them, those who offer human sacrifice kiss calves. Therefore, they shall be like the morning mists, or like the dew that goes early away, like the chaff that swirls from the threshing floor, and like smoke from a window. It's so hard to explain this because it's one of those things, like I say, is slippery. When you have an idol, which is what they did, we don't have literal idols today, but when they did, that made their loyalty to God like mist. It would go away quickly because they had a shared loyalty. It's very dangerous for them, for their souls. So the Pharisee said, well, okay, if that's the problem, then let's get rid of all idols and that'll fix it. But it didn't fix it. It didn't fix it at all because they had idols that they couldn't see. They had exalted themselves as the idol, as the God. They had said, okay, God's law is okay, but we're going to make it better with these extra laws. Make sure that you wash your hand before you touch this plate, because your hand that touched these evil things are going to make this thing evil. And so here's our tradition that the rabbis give us. Isn't that so much better? Because now you're going to be even farther away from sin. No, because you can't pretend that you're a god. They were making themselves idols, unfortunately. And so they were still splitting their loyalty with what should be 100% that Jehovah is God and there is no other, especially the religious leader. There's no way that I could be someone who could make a demand of the people. I can't make law in addition to new covenant law. Okay. Did you notice in question number 12, or 13, excuse me, he said that they're a cake unturned.
Half-baked.
What's half-baked? Okay.
On one side, raw on the other.
Yeah. Why is that though? What was it what was that symbolizing? What was Israel doing that made them burnt on one side?
Split loyalty.
They were, what seems like that's a lot of loyalty. That side's been stuck to,
But there's nothing on the other side.
but, okay, right. That's the problem,
Their
right?
love was fleeting.
What's that?
They had love for some time and then they wouldn't, so it would be, they would be all in and one side would be baked and the next time their love's gone and they're raw.
Where did they get the idols? How did they come up with the idea for idols?
From their past and surrounding countries.
That's right. So they would mingle with the outside world. Okay? And if you mingle too long, you'll pick up what they're doing. In this case, it's heat. Okay? So being a cake unturned, as Paul would say, look, I don't want you to not have contact with the outside world as the church. But don't be so stuck to the outside world that you get burnt.
Solomon did that.
Mhm.
Yes, Solomon is a great example of that, exactly. Having wives and whatnot, it's not advised, but David didn't fall into the same trap that Solomon did. He was not a cake unturned. So you would have interaction with the rest of the world, but don't be stuck to that pan so as to get burnt. And by the way, this other side is half-baked or not baked at all. This is the side that if you were going to spend most of your time, it would be with God. It would be with holiness rather than with the world. So they were a cake unturned. They had not only been to the wrong place, but they were spending all their time on that absolute dangerous heat.
And that cake is not acceptable when it comes down to it. I mean,
Nobody wants that cake.
nobody wants a half raw cake.
Nobody wants that. Yeah. I don't care what's in the ingredients. Nobody wants that. Right. And so they had ruined what little goodness they had by allowing themselves to be too involved with the outside world. Yes.
You're making the analogy of them making up laws to put that hedge between them, that kind of thing. We do the same thing today. It's like it's safety. It's like, well, we gotta make somebody messed up. We gotta make a law about this. We gotta make this, and now we got all these laws that everybody's trying to follow instead of using your own brain when you're working on something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unreal about people, taking the thought process out of it and their heart out of it, and just, having all these laws everywhere. It's like take all the warning signs off everything and let it sort itself out,
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. If I may say something in addition to that, extra law is fine if I make the law for myself, but I can't make the law for you. My own zeal to be more and more faithful to God through His new covenant, if I want to say to Greg, is real dangerous for your personality to be thus and so. So Greg, keep yourself from thus and so for your own loyalty. But I can't tell Connie extra law. Connie's got a different hand that she was dealt, different personality, different experiences. She's got